Hi, Rob. Welcome to Funnel Vision. Excited to have you on today for our chat. We're going to focus on talking about AI and sales and all of the interesting things that go along with that and AI. So thanks for being on.
Well, great to be here. It's one of my favorite topics, sales.
Perfect.
It's all good.
So jumping in, talking about AI, how do you think sales leaders should frame the role of AI in their teams? Is it a tool that, generally enhances human performance, or do you see it that could possibly replace humans within the sales function in the future?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion about AI in general. And so AI is, artificial intelligence. So what does that mean? I've been part of companies doing AI for 15 years. And so when you kind of have that longevity, you kind of look at it from, what is AI as far as helping companies, helping people. Um, Machine learning is a really great thing, but how do you apply it? And I think if leaders should really be looking at it as a enhancement tool, right? It's not a job replacer. It isn't there to make sales for you, and it's really just automating processes that are always called busy work. And
Hmm.
if you if you kind of pose it that way to sales folks and leaders, I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that it's all of those little things, like you said, like busy work and things like that, are where AI is a tool that can help you and kind of become more efficient and everything else. But I agree. I don't think it's something that people should look at or think it's going to replace, sales people, kind of in general. But as we use AI for, kind of taking over those things that really are like the busy work or, things that can be automated, what do you think are some high value activities that leaders should be directing their reps to then use that extra time to focus on?
Well, I'm kind of old school sales. I've been around for a long time. if I, I know it doesn't appear that way, but I've been doing this for about 30 years. There's an old Zig Ziglar quote. It's one of my favorites of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think sales people in general should spend that extra time, the other time, and they should do this anyway, with better discovery, finding out more about the accounts that they're working on, having value-based conversations. It seems, very common sense, but I think in general, and having hired a lot of salespeople and trained them and monitored them over the years, I think it's becoming kind of a lost art as a lot of people are depending on the technology to do that work for them. And it's just not that effective when you're really trying to connect with a prospect and move that down the sales journey to the final close and sale.
Yeah. And so I definitely agree with that as well. It's the listening, like you said, like the, kind of those activities that are, understanding and learning and building those relationships, but also that like human, like still meeting your clients, right? Like going out to lunch, meeting people in person when you can, or even if it's, over the phone, or developing those relationships. Those are things that AI cannot, at least not yet, replace for
I mean,
us.
it's the true why. Why are you having this conversation? Why are they talking to you? And I think that's sometimes not in every salesperson's, toolkit because they get into the, that feature benefit dump. Here's the pricing, and then like go ahead and buy. And they're not digging into what's actually happening. I think if you can spend more time, call it in the pain funnel, trying to dig into pain, that's much more effective than some of the remote activities and documenting things and making sure Salesforce is up to date and all those things, which is great. You should do all that, but AI can really do that for you.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me, my next question was where do you believe the human touch is irreplaceable in sales? Like, no matter how advanced AI becomes, and it seems like these are some of those things.
Well, I think you've seen this a lot in some of the news reports out around ChatGPT and then even Gemini and Anthropic of the hallucinations in AI. And so a lot of folks don't trust AI. And so I think that's irreplaceable. How do you build trust? How do you become empathetic? And how you interpreting things? I mean, I was on a call with a group that was kind of bringing me in maybe to help them with some sales things. And they thought they could pretty much build an agentic AI to respond to every single question that a prospect would have. And I kind of posed it this way. I said, well, if you don't know much about that prospect in general, and they come back at you with a objection to price, for example, what do you know about that objection? Because most of the time, and many sales leaders, they know this intuitively over the years of doing business, that the objections that they tell you are not really their actual objections. And an agentic AI has no way to know that. So I could say, I wish I didn't have to pay as much. And then the AI could then, populate the chat box with 1,000 value messages, but that's not actually their objection. And only a salesperson who understands and can interpret the prospect's actual meaning can really get to the heart of it.
Yeah, that's so true. There is like a lot of that, like, in sales, it's nuance. It's understanding people and understanding like people's motivations. And it's not always the question or the objection, like you said, that comes out of their mouth that they're asking you. Like, to understand what's driving that objection and what the real reasoning is kind of behind that is so important. And that's something that AI is not going to be able to they can't read the room. Like, they can, understand whatever the input is, but reading the room and the emotions and kind of the driving signals and things is not what's happening.
Right. I mean, AI can read the data, right?
Exactly.
But as you said,
Exactly.
they can't read the room. They can't get the subtle nuances. And you can even see it sometimes on Zoom calls. I mean, person to person is when you really get it. But on Zoom calls, you can see somebody's kind of, their facial expressions, their kind of the way they're sitting, all these things that, no AI tool is going to be able to do a lot of that well, at least at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They could just, and it can't hear exactly their facial expressions, body language. They can hear only the words, like only the data, right? And then it can't really read beyond that, which is, what salespeople are, so trained to do, is like understand, what's going on and in kind of the situation as a whole.
And it's only going to respond with what, you've trained it to do, right? So the facial expression is of disgust. Then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. What are some like specific ways that sales leaders can integrate AI, without overwhelming their teams or distracting them from, the core of selling?
Yeah, the tech avalanche of AI. I think really making it simple and kind of introducing almost like spoon feeding some things. I mean, making some of the automated tasks a lot easier, which will then solve everyday problems like call summaries, right? Things that populating HubSpot or Salesforce with some of the data, that you're capturing, what the calls you made or some of the interesting action items. I saw this the other day and it was so unbelievably cool, which I had a call summary and then it populated my calendar with a action item on my calendar. And I'd forgotten about it actually, because, you do enough of these calls. And to me, this is what it's all about. A salesperson can kind of handle about 30 prospects at a time. That's kind of my own internal numbers. And so how do you remember all these conversations and action items and all these things? And the fact that an AI tool populated my calendar with, hey, don't forget about this, that was the greatest thing ever. And, just making the data intelligent. Those are that kind of a couple of things, the early wins. Don't overwhelm people. They're just getting used to it. And so the quick, easy wins of, hey, it's going to make your life easier. That's how you sell it.
Yeah. What was what was the tool or the AI that you were using that offered that, like, hey, don't forget about this? You know what it was? It sounds like a pretty cool, useful tool.
Yeah, it was actually for this particular case. It's a company I've been helping as an engineering company, and they don't do sales all that well, but we've been helping them. use something called Read AI to capture all of
Mm,
the conversations and transcription. And I don't necessarily think you have to actually record the calls, just transcribe them. Um,
um,
and so it transcribed something in the action items in the call summary. One of them was basically kind of let's call it harmonizing with another company on some sales stages and all that sort of thing. And it just populated my to-do list on my calendar and said like, you know, summarize and harmonize with this other company. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I honestly I totally forgotten about it. It was you can look at it as almost creepy, but actually it was very cool.
yeah, I mean, that's a good use of like the data, making sure that you don't forget something
Yeah.
and kind of like those things that like fall through the cracks. We generally use Fathom,
Mhm.
recording our calls and
Sure.
interviews. It also creates like action items, but I don't think it syncs them to your calendar. But it's pretty cool what these things can do that, and
I,
they're not expensive,
I
right?
I
Like
didn't
they're
even know that it was sinking. Honestly, it was.
that's scary a little bit. You don't never know who's listening in. Um, but what do you see as some of like the biggest mistakes that your, sales leaders that you work with make when they adopt AI? Are they leaning too heavily on it? Are they not leveraging it enough? Or what are some kind of the things that you've noticed?
I think some of the things that I've seen, I wouldn't even say they're coming from sales leaders per se, because I think sales leaders in general are usually pretty good at what they're doing and adopting technology. I would say it's actually more from, let's say, the board of directors or the executive team that believes that we need to have AI and AI will do these 100 things for us. And by the way, we probably don't need salespeople anymore. I think it's pushing back against some of the pressures of the corporate world or the corporate governance. You have like private equity firms that are rolling up all these companies. You've got somebody out of the private equity firm that's sitting on the board now and is basically advising the company, and they're like, I don't see your AI, or I don't see AI in your tech stack properly, and your salespeople would do a much better job if they had AI. And I think it's you know AI is a great tool for forecasting, prioritizing some things within the sales cycle, but it doesn't make the sale for you. And I think sales leaders should do a lot to make sure when you set expectations with the governance folks, including your executive team, here's what we expect to get out of this. It's not making the sale for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's setting those expectations properly because yeah, it's so important that like everybody's on the same page and that understands it. And there are those people out there that are like, "Hey, we got to do this and we got to have as much AI as possible." And kind of like at the level where it's your sales team and executing like yeah, AI is helpful, but it's not everything. It's only a part of the process and streamlining and all the other stuff.
No doubt. I mean, I saw a funny quote, and it was AI is a compass, not an autopilot. And I thought that was a pretty good quote.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not self-driving the car just yet. Or for sales, I don't necessarily think it ever will because there's so much, other things involved that, AI is not going to be able to get to. But yeah, it's definitely I like that, a compass.
Right.
And as AI becomes like more common, how do you think sales leaders should think about hiring and developing talent? Are there different like skills or traits that are going to matter more, with the future of AI?
Well, certainly they should be talking to Talent Harbor if they're going to be hiring anybody.
I agree.
um, I don't think it's that different from what I personally look for today. And I think it's more of what characters would you look for any salesperson? Are they, first off, are they kind of outgoing? Are they charismatic? Are they emotionally intelligent? Right? As are EIQ, as
Hmm.
my son would call it. Are they curious? I think all the tools that we have today are going to endlessly change, right? And so one of the things that I always ask people, in addition to this topic, but really, what are you doing to kind of improve yourself in general, and not just corporate or sales development? Are you what do you read? What is it you're curious about in general in life? And I have a thing with salespeople that if I ask them a question of like what sales books have you read or what things have you done to improve your sales, and they say nothing right now, I tend to kind of raise my eyebrow like, that's interesting. Because you can have the best training in the world, but there's always new techniques, there's new LinkedIn ways to approach stuff. There's always new stuff out there. And if you're not continuing curious about what's out there, then that's always a red flag to me. So really it's about who's coachable as well. Are they, let's say, a project that we're involved in, and you and I were just talking about, one of the salespeople came in that company and just has always been very curious about how do I improve.
Mhm.
Wanted me to listen to the calls and say, can you help me through the tough calls? Anybody that's coachable like that is usually going to have a good future.
Yeah, I agree with that. Those are all things that, like, when obviously we were recruiting for, salespeople and talking to salespeople all the time, and that constant curiosity and what are you reading, and how are they continually growing yourself? I think those are all the things that we're always looking for. And with AI specifically, we do ask candidates, like, what AI tools have you been using, and how have you
Right.
been leveraging those in your current role? Because we also want to assess, like, we want to make sure that people are, adopting and kind of using those things, just for some of the things that we talked about. Like, are they open to, using AI and helping them streamline processes? Are they interested? Because as we all know, like, AI is changing every single day. There's new tools, there's different things out there that you could be looking at. And so just finding somebody with that curious personality and that's interested, so that they're continually wanting to learn and grow, and try different tools. Does this work? Would this work? Making sure that they're, that person that has that personality that wants to learn, and, be coached, like you said as well, is that's one of the most important factors in sales, for sure.
You know, sales is always about storytelling, right? And so how do you augment your storytelling with these tools in which, you've seen a lot of the things that are out there, like the chat GPTs and different things. And, you know, knowing how to pose or get the story out there, whether it's uploading a lot of different information, putting together an idea of what you want to talk about, and then even cranking out the story, how you may want to approach it. Because at the end of the day, that's what really gets sales. And you don't want the AI to get in the way of people's personality, because I've been saying this for a long time. The two axioms I have: one, everybody in the company is a salesperson, and two, people buy from people they like. And it's just that's just the truth. That's always been the truth about sales.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with that. So, Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and where can people find you?
I mean, best way to find me in general is on LinkedIn, because I'm out there on LinkedIn a lot. So just put my name in and crank it up that way. I've helped sales teams and sales organizations grow for a long time. I've been a part of 7 startups and helped early stage and even startup companies grow, and mentor a lot of salespeople, and that's kind of been my thing for quite some time. And so we do a lot of consulting with groups that are looking to grow their sales teams, or they're stagnant in their sales, and bringing different approaches. And so we've had a great success in doing that. And just go to my LinkedIn page and reach out. I'd love to talk to anybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Appreciate it. And this has been a great conversation. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, really great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And just again, it's one of my favorite topics, sales.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob.